Well, hello, I'm Scott Stevens, Goldsboro City Manager, here with our February update. A couple things to talk about. I guess most recently, end of January and beginning of February, we had a pretty good snowfall here for us in Goldsboro and Wayne County. I will tell you, I'm pleased with the response from the citizenry and staying home or getting off the roads Tuesday evening as the storm came in and staying off the roads most of Wednesday. By Thursday, we had folks back out and around, but Tuesday night and Wednesday were really good in the community, and we appreciate that. That certainly helps our crews in responding. And then I really am proud of city staff in their preparation for the storm and their response from the storm, from our police and fire to our parks and recreation, to all the employees involved in our public works departments, working through the event and again preparing for it. I was very proud with our response and pleased with how that went. And then of course Mother Nature really helped us as it came along Friday and Saturday with warming up and clearing our roads. But again, kudos to our staff. If you see something we could have done better, please don't hesitate to let us know. We'll try to incorporate that in our future snowfall event. I've talked about a 311 GIS system that we implemented some months ago. I'd like to continue to just share that with you and encourage you to take a look at it and see if it works for you. It's meant to be a way through a computer or smartphone or tablet to report items that you'd want the city to address, whether it's potholes, whether it's high grass along the street or in yards, whether it's leaning signs or things that have an appearance in nature that are not emergency items, but items that you'd like to report to us to have taken care of, street lights out. If you'll report them, two things, the 311 GIS, you can report and see the status. So you'll see when we're taking action and you'll see it when we completed it. And the other thing is everybody else in the community that would choose to look can see what's been reported and see what kind of action is going on as well. And so to start the process, if you're interested, is to go to www.311gis.com. You'll need to create a username and password, and then you'll have access. You can view it, but to create a service request, you have to have that username and password. So I would encourage you to do that if you have an interest. As always, you can call our office or report things directly to us over the phone. But for those that like the convenience of being able to do it and then monitor it, that is another option for you. It is not for emergency response issues. If there's a water main that's leaking badly or something that you would need an emergency response for, please don't hesitate to call the 911 center. But for those day-to-day things that tomorrow could be repaired, 311 GIS I think is a very good system. We've also talked about a Goldsboro School of Government. That's really a product of our Community Affairs Department. Leteri Ward is our contact person for that. She's worked to create really a schedule to help people understand better local government and in particular city government. We're accepting applications through the end of February, so through February 28th. We're hoping to capture about 20 people. We had 20 seats available in this first class. It would begin mid-March, and the commitment is 2 to 3 hours, 1 day a week, and generally 1 evening a week for an 8-week period. And the idea is that we would talk about what the role of different departments are and take you on some tours and show you some of our facilities during that time, with twofold in the goal. The goal would be to, one, educate the community and help you better understand what we do as a local government, how we function. And the other side of that was maybe generate more interest in our boards and commissions, bring citizens who have an interest in local government, become involved and make you more informed on how we operate. So if you have an interest, we'd encourage you to contact Leteri Ward. It's 580-4359. And again, she's in our Community Affairs Department, and we'd love to have you to be part of our inaugural class. We've talked about a city council retreat that is still scheduled for February 19th and 20th. We'll be meeting at our Public Works Complex here in Goldsboro. So we'll be meeting in town, just not in our normal meeting space with our mayor and city council. We will be at the Public Works Complex on Clingman Street most of both of those days, and we'll be publishing an agenda for that. We'll start at 8:30 most mornings and run through about probably 3:30 or 4:30 both afternoons, and certainly it's a public event anytime. If you'd like to be part of that, plan on those 2 days of come spending some time with us. In terms of topics, some of them will be maybe regular and recurring, but just to tell you where we are, we'll look at health insurance. We'll talk about some federal legislative agenda items for us. We'll talk about golf course operations. We'll talk about our PNC house development and requirements there. We'll talk about our automated meter reading that we have discussed some with City Council. We'll do probably a tour of our Public Works complex in terms of equipment and just show some of the mayor and council some of our equipment items, some newer, some older, and just let them see those things in person rather than talking about them as we do a lot. We'll talk about sidewalks and street resurfacing priorities. We may discuss staggered terms with our elected officials, where right now they serve 4-year terms, continuing with 4-year terms, but making it so we would replace approximately half the board every 4 years or every 2 years. So you'd have somebody that comes in and serves a 4-year term, and then 2 years later you'd re-elect another portion of the group to serve a 4-year term. So you never completely replace the board at any one time. We'll talk about our annual crime report, and I'm pleased, at least in the overall numbers, we've had a decrease in the reportable crimes in Goldsboro this past year, meaning 2013 over 2012. It's not enough of a decrease. There's still work to be done, but at least it's not an increase in crime numbers. So those will be a good report from our police chief. We'll talk about a 6-month financial update for the city. We're expanding to intending to have a placemaking exercise, really helping the council maybe do some visioning for some type of redevelopment within the community and neighborhoods, mixed use with commercial and other things, so you create more walkable communities. And then talk about our recreation bond referendum, our homes to demolish. We've got 10 that are currently under contract to be demolished. We'll talk about the next 10 that we'll work towards in next year's budget. And then we'll talk about some staffing issues. And again, that's our tentative list, subject to change as we finalize that agenda, but we ought to keep our mayor and council fairly engaged for a 2-day period. And again, those dates were February 19th and 20th. We've had 2 other things that we've talked about in terms of recreation, and so I want to talk about our recreation bond a little bit. We've talked about $18.9 million, and I'll come back to that in just a moment. On our last city council agenda, our first meeting in February, and again, you'll hear that again in our meeting mid-February, I believe, we've talked about park master plans. And while the 2 are related, they are not one and the same. The park master plan that we were presenting was sort of the ideal or future build out for Well Park, for Herman Park, and then for Herman Park Center. And so while the recreation bond would fund some of those ultimate build outs of those parks, the recreation bonds would not fund all of it. So I try not to confuse the 2, although as they're coming at the same time, it would be easy for folks to do that. If you look at the numbers that we'll talk about on the park master plan for those 3 facilities, meaning Well Park, Herman Park, and Herman Park Center, those numbers probably total close to $17 or $18 million in the future ultimate build out of those parks. And again, it's a visioning exercise based on public input and comment that has led to this being what we'd like to work for. And so there'll be our sort of roadmap for those parks when approved by council, or if approved by council, and we'll work towards that. And it is everything from sidewalks to playgrounds to shelters to bathrooms to building improvements to those kinds of things that you would look for over a period of time within the parks. The bond referendum that we are speaking of will address some of the parts of the park master plans, but not all of them. And so if you have questions on that, please don't hesitate to contact us, because we'd like for that to be clear. While they are talking about similar facilities, everything listed in the park master plan is that future guide for us. The recreation bond will address some of those if approved. In our recreation bond, we have worked hard with our council to make sure that they're comfortable where we are in our projects. We have not done as much sharing information to the community. I apologize for that. We just didn't want to get ahead of our elected officials and their decision to move forward with the projects. There has been good coverage in our newspaper. You'll see more from us, and again, we're willing to come out. We'll have videos on our website that you can look at very soon that will talk about what the bonds will do specifically. We're willing to come talk to any civic club or church group or homeowners or anybody that would like to know what we're doing. And our role is really to be fact sharing. There's some that are advocates in the community. That's really not our role. Our role is to share the facts of what these projects would be and what we would hope to accomplish with the bonds, and let you as a community decide. And our mayor and council held a public hearing at their February 3rd meeting. We had a few people speak for the bond referendum. We had a few people speak against it. Ultimately, the mayor and council did authorize us to move forward and to put it on a May 6th vote. So there'll be a referendum where the citizens of Goldsboro can come out and vote for it, yes or no, if you'd like to do these projects really sooner or later. And most of what we're talking about, and I'll speak to them in a moment, is projects that we would complete in the next 5 years if the bond referendum is approved, or we'd complete in the next 20 or 25 years if the bond referendum is not approved. And again, the work at Herman Park Center we're talking about has to happen at some point in the future, from roofs to HVAC to renovation work there. If the bonds pass, it'll happen sooner. If the bonds don't pass, and that's the community wish, it would happen, but it would happen over time through annual budget appropriations and a little bit here and a little bit there. And again, I think it will take us a 20 to 25 year time frame to complete the 4 projects we're talking about. So I don't want to tell you that if the bonds don't pass, the work won't occur. It just will be over a much longer time frame. In terms of the projects we've talked about a reconstruction of a W.A. Foster currently at Mena Well Park in the $4 to $6 million range in terms of money at Mena Well, which would be the facility, and then some improvements within the park. We've talked about $6 million at Herman Park Center, removing the gray room, renovating the existing Herman Park Center, and then rebuilding a gymnasium where the gray room currently stands, and improvements to bathrooms and facilities, but keeping the main structure and renovating that space, about $6 million to do that. And then we've talked about a multi-sports complex at another $6 million, and we're working on a partnership with Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, and I think we'll be announcing that in February in terms of location and how that process would move forward. And then the final piece of that would be additional greenway money, particularly focused along the Stony Creek branch, and we would use just under $1 million of the bond money for greenways and trying to basically double that, having maybe $200,000 to $300,000 to match with grants so that we turn our $1 million locally into hopefully $2 million or more for additional greenways within the community. We have left some latitude within the bond referendum to move money between projects, meaning if one project came in at 4.5 or 5 million and there was an additional $1 million, that could go towards one of the other 3 projects. So we will build, if the bonds are approved, all 4 projects as we're discussing, but as we get construction bids and final cost, we have the ability to shift some money from one to the other, and so we want to be clear with that as well. Most of the folks that I have talked to, at least that we've heard comment in some of our public comments the other evening, many folks were not opposed to the projects. I've had a number of people say they just didn't feel that it was fair that city residents were the only group paying for it, and that they would rather see a county sales tax or a city sales tax to fund it, or the county commissioners, County of Wayne pay, as we're all county residents, let the county help support it. I think those are great suggestions. However, the city council doesn't have that authority. One, we can't require the county commissioners to fund recreation within the city, and so that's a different kind of discussion. And the city council doesn't have the authority to levy a sales tax, so that's something they just can't do. They have to have state legislative approval for that, and that has not been something that's been widespread in our state for this type of park and recreation improvement. So while those would be ways to fund it, it is not something the city council has the authority to do. So I would tell you, we either do these projects through a bond referendum or the city borrowing money to fund them, or they can't get done the other way. So that's the challenge for us. When we talk about the cost, and again, with the bond referendum, we have talked about up to a 2.4 cent property tax increase, and these projects are split between our general fund or our tax fund, our community development fund, and then our hotel tax fund. And our multi-sports complex primarily will all be funded through the hotel tax, and we believe it will support that. It will also support the operations. We've heard some comments about, well, additional staffing, and we've not said a whole lot about additional staffing, but at the Herman Park and W.A. Foster centers, the staffing would be similar. So again, from a staffing cost or long-term cost, our maintenance cost should be less because we'll have newer facilities. Our staffing costs should be not anymore because we'll have existing staff. At the multi-sports complex, we will likely have some staffing issues there, but again, they should be paid for through the hotel occupancy tax and not through our general fund or property tax revenue. On the property tax side, we have talked about up to a 2.4 cent property tax increase, with the average home value in Goldsboro being about $118,000. That means if you're sort of an average, you have a $100,000 home or $150,000 home, your monthly increase in your property tax is $2 a month for a $100,000 home or $3 a month for a $150,000 home. So it is a property tax increase, but whether that's significant or not and how that works into your budget is really an individual decision and how that drives you in your decision. I would offer anytime you'd like us to come out and speak and talk with you, whatever group, please don't hesitate to call my office, 919-580-4330, and either myself, our public information officer, or our Parks and Rec director, or all of us would come speak to groups to try to make sure, one, we answer your questions, we share the information, and we try to make sure you at least understand what the vote is about on May 6th. So please don't hesitate to call us. And there'll be more information on our website as we move forward, and you'll see more, I think, in our local news as we go forward in time. With that, I think I'll close for this month. You'll hear a lot more from us on the Parks and Recreation information over the coming months leading up to the May 6th vote. But with any issues, please don't hesitate to contact my office, whether you do it through our website, whether you do it through 311 GIS, or whether you do it through a phone call. We're really here to serve and we enjoy what we do, so don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you.